All right, Karen, I'm glad you're here.
Yes, I am glad to be here. I love what you are doing. So thank you for making more options for people in Reading.
Thanks. We love what you're doing. Tell us, so you have been around the death industry a whole lot longer than we have. How did you get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started at 18. I loved anatomy in high school. That's how I generally tell my story. My parents were really big on don't go to college, get a trade.
Yeah.
And someone else told us about morticians and mortuary college. So all of these elements converged for me to feel like, okay, I could probably do that. Enrolled in mortuary college right after high school. And I've done nothing ever since. So that's 27 years.
I think you've done nothing. You've done nothing else.
I've done nothing else ever since then, work in death care. I started as an embalmer and then a funeral director. I went to school, did my apprenticeship, and would work overnight all at the same time for 2 years, which is not for the faint of heart for people who are entering mortuary college, just so they know about that. But so I just worked my way through all of the places that you could go in funeral service, ultimately becoming a general manager and then a district manager for funeral homes and cemeteries, when I realized that it was taking me away from working with people, which is what I prefer to do. So last year, I decided to go out on my own to work with people.
Yeah.
And grateful for everything that I learned. And I do think that is something that makes me an expert in my field, is because I've had so many years and so much experience in different facets of the industry.
When we got into this industry, I mean, everybody has their why of why you might start there. And most of the why is usually around people. Mm-hmm. But it is business. And there's a lot that can take you away from people. And so I love what you're doing, and you've made some pretty big moves
Huge
to
moves.
get back
Very
to
scary,
people focused.
All worth it.
Yeah. So tell me about what you're doing now.
So I am a death doula, and those can show up in many different ways. So different death doulas may specialize in different things. I would say for me as a death doula, I specialize in supporting caregivers. I understand what happens on the back end and everything that caregiver would go through beforehand and then afterwards when working with a funeral home. Yeah. And then also with legacy. Legacy is really important to me, and helping people who are living identify what they would like their legacy to be in order to live more authentically, i.e. deciding that when I die, people will say that I worked with people one-on-one, that I cared for people directly, and in order to do that, I had to leave where I was.
There's a Hamilton reference in
there. There is a Hamilton.
Who died
100%. That is in my book that I'm writing. I quote Hamilton for sure. And great point, because we don't know who will tell our story.
Yeah.
We have no control over that, but we do have control over how we live and how we want our story to be told. And then it's up to them, but we're doing our part.
Yeah.
And that's all I can help people do. So I do help people record their legacy at the end of life, but I also want to help people who are living today work on what their legacy will be someday.
Love that.
Live intentionally.
I love that. Yeah. One question I hear a lot in terms of the work of a death doula, I hear people say, well, we have hospice. Do we need a death doula? Can you give more color to that?
A lot of people understand what a birth doula is, and they wouldn't think twice about bringing a birth doula to a hospital where there would be doctors and medical care. So death doulas are the same. We offer non-medical support to a family and a dying person, or the loved ones and a dying person, as a complement to the healthcare that they would be receiving. And oftentimes, and this is what I told hospice when I was telling them about what I do the things that they wish they could do all day. But they have a certain amount of time that they can spend on one person, and then they have to go somewhere else. And they have different resources, but not 24 hours a day or whatever it looks like. They have to spread themselves. And some of that work actually comes down with hospice volunteers, which I also am, as a way to give back in a way that feels good and helpful. Yeah. And a way to support hospice. But they go together. Death doulas are gap fillers, and again can also start talking about this logistics that are required afterwards, the funeral, and what to expect and what their options are.
Yeah. We talk a lot at Aquaterra about, when we're training our staff, that we do this all day, every day.
Yes.
And we're walking people through a moment that they'll remember for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
And so if we can show up as a sturdy and steady, truly a professional, it's almost redefining what it means to be a professional in that mode where we can take on, we act as guides through a moment that is new and different for a lot of people, but it's very familiar to us, and so we can be a steady guide. And it sounds a lot like what the work of a death doula is.
A good experience of empowering people while they're here in a facility having to make really terrible decisions at a really terrible time. That's what you want to be, is be able to be a guide for people and give them options, but then also not too many, right? Because now they're overwhelmed, and that is why, another reason why I moved into being a death doula and grief and death and dying education is because I want to get to people before they're in the middle of a grief hangover or a literal hangover with a grief hangover. Let's be real. It is 100% real, and there's absolutely no judgment. I made a post about like the after death drink, and I think it is a thing, and do it safely, but I believe in it. You know?
Yeah. It's real.
It's real.
That's one thing about you, Karen, is that you are real all the way through.
That is correct.
All the way through. There's no pretense. You're going to get somebody that feels deeply, deeply human.
Yes, and I understand I'm not for everybody, but generally the way I show up here is the way I show up here. And there's some people want that reality, and someone who's not afraid to like make jokes. You know, I try to be tasteful in my jokes. I try to, not go too far. But
it's human.
It is human, and people deal with grief often with humor. So I am definitely someone where if you deal with grief with humor, I'm here to support you.
And tell me about your grief work. I know you are so busy. I feel like you're always doing 100 things, especially around town, locally here in Reading, but even beyond. Tell me about your grief work?
A few things. So one, currently I have a grief group through the YMCA, and that is generally for people who have lost a loved one. It is open to everyone in the community, and it allows people to come in what I try to make a safe space for people to share what's ever on their heart and be with other people who get to listen, and we make agreements so we all are open to whatever anyone is experiencing. Then I also meet with people one-on-one. Sometimes that looks like taking walks. Sometimes that looks like leading them through a guided meditation. Sometimes that looks like art. Sometimes we can go to their home and I can help them sort through their loved one's belongings in a way that feels supportive. So that might be related to Swedish death cleanings. But I also like to help people do that ahead of time. But
say more about Swedish death cleaning. I love that.
Yeah, so the good old Swedes teach us a lot about how we might handle death and dying. Other cultures have a lot to teach us.
Yes.
The principle would be to take a good look and assessment of the things that you own and start addressing them now.
Yeah.
As an example, my dad always wears one ring and one necklace. I'm not going to take those things away from him today, but we've already defined where they are going. The necklace is going to me and the ring is going to my brother. Right now, my parents are in the process of moving from one location to another, and so they're taking a hard look at, we're in our 80s, basically. What do we have that we're not going to want to saddle you with at this moment? And it's hard to do. It's hard to look at your things and we have a lot of attachment to our things, as we should, but sometimes it's a good practice to let that go. And in fact, so this is really funny to me. This is an example of one of my things that I think are funny in the challenge. I do some work with a local crafter, and we use art as an open door to have difficult conversations. And I spoke about Swedish death cleaning, and my idea that got a lot of pushback was that we would come to an event, we would make art, and then destroy it before we left.
Okay.
And people got no, they would not do that. And I was like, the way that we're feeling in that moment, that means it's something for us to explore.
Yeah.
Right? How much art can we cannot save every piece of art that we've ever created. And I was telling my friend who's an artist yesterday about this. I was like, you're probably going to hate this. And I explained it. She's like, actually, I love it. I can't, once I make it, it's out in the world, and where it goes is not up to me. And so I just put it out in the world, and yeah, so we actually have that on the books now. But instead, what we're going to do to, I guess, make it a little bit more palatable is have someone send a picture of something they love. So maybe their favorite T-shirt or something, and we'll put that on a piece of paper, like an outline, and you'll watercolor a copy of the shirt and then throw that away, knowing that you still have the shirt.
Yeah. It's a baby step.
To baby step. But for me, I want to go all the way. I want to make art that we love, and I want to throw it away and enjoy the moment, the process of making art, and not be attached to the thing.
I love that. I feel myself reacting to that a little bit. So when I have heard about Swedish death cleaning, I always think about it in terms of people in their final stage of life doing it for themselves in their home.
And that's generally.
But I know in grieving the loss of my grandma that I was very close to and my mom, I have felt really stalled out in cleaning out certain parts of my house because it feels very stuck. I've actually talked with Dustin from Curated in revisiting my house because I felt like in some ways my house got stalled a little bit stunted. And I know people do that with their wardrobe. Things happen and grief, you get stuck. And so I think there's the death cleaning where in preparing for the final stage of your life, but there's probably even a process for cleaning in places that we get stuck in our own grief in the middle of life, right?
And Peacock actually has a series on the general art of Swedish death cleaning. It's kind of like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, but like Swedish people coming into your house. And some of the people are dying, some of the people are handling the things of the people that have already died. So it's a lot of different scenarios in which you might use this concept.
Well, I love it because I think grief sometimes can feel like a block for imagination. It's imagination is the energy of moving forward, and grief can make us very, we want to stop, we want to hold on to whatever's in the past, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it feels like the work you're doing is helping people to honor what's in the past, but still continue taking baby steps forward. Just move with it.
And that doesn't mean getting rid of all your things. I'm not getting rid of every piece of art that I ever made. I'm doing this intentionally for the process. I want to enjoy it, and then I want to be okay.
Oh, I love
not
that.
taking it with me. And that's what it's called, is you can't take it with you.
You can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I love that. Tell us, if somebody is interested in learning more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me at mourningspace.com, Mourning Space on Instagram, Mourning Space on TikTok.
Awesome.
Owning Life on.
And that's M-O-U.
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 Morning, that's with a U. So I do a lot of affirmations, and that's how we start as morning. That's with a U.
Morning starts with a U.
Yeah.
That's with a U. I like that. Okay. I love it.
Good.
Thanks, friend.
Thanks.
Thanks.